Hello everybody, welcome to a video on adjustable rate loans and refinancing. As with the amortization video, the reason that this video exists is that this material is not in the textbook, so I wanted to create a resource for you to reference if you need one. So in this video, we'll just be talking about what happens when an interest rate on a loan changes. So here are the goals of this material. Given a loan, you should be able to calculate a new payment after an interest rate change. So after an interest rate rises or drops, the payment will change. It will also rise or fall. You should be able to calculate that new payment and also think about the consequences of refinancing on a loan. So here's a sample question that we will do. This guy has a 5-year car loan of $16,000 at 4% APR. 2 years into the loan, the bank says to him, hey, we will lower that APR to 2.5%, and we'll charge you a little bit for doing that. So this is a fairly common thing. Lots of people do this with their mortgages. They pay a fee to lower their interest rate. So the question here is, should Terry do this or not? What are the consequences of him accepting this offer? Okay, so let's just start with the basics here. An adjustable rate loan, unsurprisingly, is a loan where the rate can adjust. The interest rate can change. So let me just show you how this works with a very small example. So Keegan takes out a 1-year loan of $3,000. He will repay it in 4 quarterly payments. Okay, so this is a small loan with a very small time window. Suppose the initial APR is 3%. But after the first 2 payments, the interest rate rises to 7%. What does that look like in terms of the loan? Well, let me just start building an amortization table. So I will just tell you that his payment amount is 764.12. So just accept that as a given. That's the payment on a 1-year loan of $3,000, APR 3%, quarterly payments. Okay, so just take that as a given. So if you want to start filling in this table, you do it just like we did previously. The interest numbers come from PRT, where P is the amount that you owe, R is the interest rate, and T is the time since the previous payment. So since these are quarterly payments, it's been a quarter of a year since your last payment. Okay, so the first 2 lines of this table, there's nothing new here. We did this in a previous lesson. So what changes now from previous material is that when the 3rd payment rolls around, there's a new interest rate. The interest rate is now 7%. So what happens, after the first 2 payments, the bank basically says, okay, there's 6 months left on this loan. The APR is now going to be 0.07, and this guy still owes $15,1120. So basically the bank just treats from now on as a new loan with a new time span, 6 months now, for a total of 1 year for the entire process, and a new principal amount of $15,1120. So recall, Keegan originally owed $3,000. 6 months into the loan, he does not owe $3,000 anymore. He owes $15,1120. So the bank will use that as like a new loan amount for a 6-month loan with a new APR. So again, I would just tell you the new payment is $775.49. Put those there, and now you can just fill in the table the way you normally do with PRT, and remaining balance, etc. Okay, so with an interest rate rise, this is the kind of thing you will see in an amortization table. The payment will, generally speaking, go up, and so the interest will also jump up to account for a higher interest rate, etc. Okay, so I just wanted to end this intro example by thinking about how much interest he had to pay. So in this example here, we can just add up the interest column to see what he paid. So 22.5 plus 16.94, etc. With the interest rate jump, he paid $79.24 in interest. Suppose there had been no interest rate jump. Okay, so suppose the interest rate had stayed at 3% the entire time. That's what this table is showing here, this bottom table. Okay, so with this bottom table, there's no funny business. The interest just continues to decline. And then if you add up those numbers, you get 22.5 plus 16.49, etc. You get $56.45. So with the interest rate jump, he paid 79 bucks. If there had been no interest rate jump, he paid 56 bucks. So that interest rate jump cost him $23. Okay, so $23 doesn't sound like very much money because, it's not a ton of money. But imagine that this is happening not on a $3,000 loan over a year. Imagine this happens on, a time horizon of like 30 years, like a mortgage, or even say 5 years on an auto loan. These effects can become quite disastrous, okay? Because if you think in terms of percentages, this number here is something like 45% bigger than this number, right? It's a 45% increase in the amount of interest he had to pay. So just in terms of percentages, it's a significant increase in the amount of interest he had to pay. Okay, so let me give you a fresh example that's more realistic. So you take out a 30-year mortgage of $275,000 in 2005. The loan was what is called a 3-1 adjustable rate mortgage, or a 3-1 ARM. What this means is that your interest rate for the first 3 years is locked in. So for the first 3 years, the interest rate was 2.5%. Okay, that's just a given. After the first 3 years, the bank can change your interest rate if they want to. They can change it to more market rates. So what happens in this kind of scenario usually is this 2.5% is like a promotional interest rate. It's low. And so then after the promotional time expires, the rate resets to something that's more market rate, something that most people are getting. So your promotional rate expires. So that's what's going to happen to Dan and Janine here. They get 2.5% APR for the first 3 years. And then after the first 3 years, the bank can change their rate on a yearly basis if the bank wants to. Okay, so for the sake of this example, we're just going to have a single interest rate change, 2.5% APR for the first 3 years, and then the rate will jump to 6.5% for the rest of the loan. Okay, so given all this, there's some questions we can ask. Assuming they always make the monthly minimum payment, what's their new mortgage payment after the interest rate rises? And assuming that 6.5% stays where it is, how much does this rate jump cost them? Presumably it costs them some, right? So the question is how much? So to answer a question like this, there's no formula you will use. Okay, what you will do on your homework or on an exam is you will go to a loan calculator online. So to find it, you type bank rate, one word, loan calculator in Google or whatever search engine. If you type it into Google, the first non-advertisement hit is what you want. So see how it says ad right there? You don't want that. Just the first non-ad hit, which is right there. And you'll see this kind of nice little layout. It says loan calculator, and over here you can type in the parameters of the loan, like how big the loan is. So I'll type in $275,000 for these people. How long the loan is. It's a 30-year loan. And the interest rate. So the promotional interest rate was 2.5%. And then when you hit calculate, this calculator will tell you what their monthly payment is. Whoops. And sometimes advertisements pop up, right? So you gotta just close them out. Okay, so for the first 3 years of their loan, they are going to be writing a check for roughly $1,100. This calculator does some other nice things also. It will show you an amortization table, and you got to scroll down and see it. This is a 30-year mortgage, so the amortization table is really big. Scroll, scroll, scroll. I mean, it starts us in February 2018. Since it's a 30-year loan, it's going to have to go all the way till, January of 2048. So you got to scroll a long way. Right there it is, January 2048. Now notice on this calculator, it does something nice for you. It actually has more columns than the tables we did in class. So this has 6 columns. The extra column is this total interest column. So this interest here just keeps track of how much each check goes to interest. So this 1086.58, 572.92 goes to interest, and then 571.85, etc. This column here just keeps track of the sum total of all that. So after 3 months, you've paid $17.15 in interest. After 5 months, you've paid $28.53 in interest, etc. So if you scroll all the way down to the end of this table, you will see that, assuming you keep this 2.5% interest rate going, which you're not, right? But assuming you did, you would pay $116,169.69 in interest on the loan, okay? So the loan amount was $275,000. You will pay that back to the bank, right? You'll give them $275,000 back. In addition to that $275,000, you will pay the bank $116,169.69. So in total, your house costs you whatever, $390,000 or so. Okay. So in this scenario here, though, I should say real quick before we actually do it, many of the mortgages that helped crash the economy in 2008 were structured like this. Families would have an interest rate jump that they couldn't afford, and suddenly their house wasn't as worth as much as they thought, and so they couldn't sell it for what they wanted, and everything sort of spiraled. Okay, so anyway, so these people, their interest rate will not stay at 2.5%. It's going to jump to 6.5%. So how do you think about what their new payment will be after that? Well, you go to this table and you say, okay, 3 years into the loan, something will happen. So let's go 3 years into the loan. And so notice February to January is a 1-year cycle. So that's 12 months, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 1 year into the loan, you're at January 2019. 2 years into the loan, you're at January 2020. 3 years into the loan, you're at January 2021. So here is where the interest rate change will take place. So notice 3 years into the loan, or 36 payments into the loan, however you would like to say it, notice the amount that you still owe on the loan is $255,817.65. So you borrowed $275,000, that was the original mortgage amount. You have not reduced that amount by very much. You've reduced it by about 20 grand over the 3 years. So what the bank will now do is they will take this $255,817 number, they'll treat that as a new loan amount, and they'll basically reset the loan to a 27-year loan with this as a principal amount, because that's how much you still owe, and with 6.5% as the APR. Okay, so let me go up here and type all that. So it was 255,817, and then this calculator won't let you do decimals. I don't think anyway. Maybe it will, but in the past it hasn't. So it doesn't matter if you include the 0.65 or not. And now 3 years have already elapsed, so there are 27 years left on the loan. But now the APR is 6.5%. So after I hit calculate here, the calculator will show me my new mortgage payment after this interest rate hike. 1677.02, okay? Much larger than the $1,100 I had a second ago, right? This is like $500 more, $600 more. It's about a 50% increase over the previous mortgage payment. So this is significant, right? This family has to now find an extra $600 a month to pay for their house. Okay, so let me just go back to the slides and summarize everything I just did. So you will see a question like this on your exam. You will use the calculator in just the manner I did to answer that question, or in your homework. Again, there's no formula here, right? Of course, there are formulas in existence, and the calculator is using them, but I'm not expecting you to know them. Okay, so mortgage payment for the first 3 years we got as roughly $1,100. The remaining balance after 3 years, the amount you still owe after 3 years, is $255,817. So when you find your new mortgage payment, you ask the calculator, with a new principal amount of $255,817, and again, decimal doesn't matter here. Sometimes it won't accept it. A new time span of 27 years, and now a new interest rate of 6.5%. The new mortgage payment will be what we just got, $1,677. Okay, so that's how you answer a question like, what's the new payment? So the second question was, well, how much does this cost them? Their payment went up, so they're paying more than they would have without the interest rate going up. So how much more are they paying? And to answer a question like that, I do some math in the slides here, but notice in this setup here, I've reset the loan to 27 years here, right? So I can just scroll all the way to the bottom of this 27-year time span and get the total interest with my new interest rate. Okay, so $287,537. That's the total amount of interest I pay on the 27 years. But recall that I did pay interest during my first 3 years, didn't I? So let me just put the original loan amount back. 2.5%. Okay, so for the first 3 years, so start February 2018, go to January 2021. During the first 3 years, I paid roughly $20,000 in interest. Okay, $19,934. So over the first 3 years, I paid $19,934 in interest, and then over the next 27 years, I'm paying that humongous whatever it was, 200 and some thousand, 287,000, right? Okay, so just to summarize, over the first 3 years, I paid roughly $20,000 in interest. Then over the next 27 years, I will pay roughly $288,000 in interest. So combining all that together says that overall, I'm going to pay roughly $308,000 in interest on this loan. Okay, 20 grand for the first 3 years, $288,000 for the next 27 years. So if you think about it, that's a staggering difference because the original interest amount was like $116,000, right? And now, because of this interest rate jump, I'm paying $308,000 in interest, right? You've almost tripled the amount of interest you have to pay because of that interest rate jump. So now, your original mortgage amount was $275,000. Now you're paying more than that in interest, right? You're basically buying yourself 2 houses, slightly more than 2 houses. Okay, so anyway, so I go through all that here, but you would just use the calculator like we did. So the total amount paid with the interest rate jump is $582,000 or so, and then the interest with the rate jump was that $308,000 number I got. Here I actually get the exact one. So that's terrible, right? That really, really hurts. So you're comparing $116,000 in interest to roughly $308,000 in interest, right? So this interest rate jump cost them almost $200,000. Okay, so let me now just finish with that example from the beginning, this guy who had an auto loan who's now going to refinance. Okay, so the question is, should he do this? And to answer that, you should just calculate the interest he would save off of this. Because in this case, the interest rate will drop, so he's going to save something, The question is, will he save enough to justify this fee of $400? So if he doesn't save $400 or more, right, he shouldn't do this. So to answer this question, though, you do it the same way we did the other one. I mean, the numbers are different, but the process is the same. So it's 16 grand you would type into this calculator. 16 grand, a 5-year loan, and it was 4.5% interest. I think were all the parameters. No, just 4% interest. Okay. Okay, so there's his monthly payment. He'll pay roughly $300 a month. Let's now look at the amortization table. So assuming he doesn't take the offer from the bank, so assuming he keeps this 4% APR through the life of the loan, the amount of interest he will pay is, scroll down, 1679.86. Okay, so he's going to pay roughly $1,700 in interest if he does not accept this offer from the bank. So now let's think through, well, what if he does accept this offer? Okay, so it says 2 years into the loan. That's where this action is happening. So let me go 2 years into the loan. So again, each year is a February to January cycle. So Feb 2018 to Jan 2019 is one cycle, and then Feb 2019 to January 2020 is the next one. So this row of the table is 2 years into the loan. And after 2 years, he has paid $1,052.45 in interest, and he still owes $9,980.51 on the remaining balance. Okay, so what I will do now is type 9,980, and then 3 years left on the loan, right? Because he's already paid 2 years, and 2.5% interest. So after I hit calculate, this 294.66 number will fall some because the interest rate fell. So let's see. It only falls to $288.04. So his monthly payment has only decreased by like $6. So that's not particularly exciting. So now let me just look at the interest on this 3 years. Okay, so over the next 3 years, he will pay roughly $400 in interest, right? So assuming he takes the bank's offer, he will now pay $400-ish over the last 3 years. And let me just type in the original parameters again. 16,000, 5-year loan, 4%. So recall that over the first 2 years, let me go down to January 2020 again, he'd already paid $10.52 in interest, right? So he's going to pay that $10.52 in interest no matter what, because that's the first 2 years of the loan. Nobody's offered him a refinancing offer yet. But again, recall if he takes the refi offer, he will pay an additional $400 in interest. So if he takes the refinancing offer, he will have paid roughly $14.50 in interest. Okay, so even with that interest rate drop, he's going to pay $14.50 in interest. If he hadn't taken the offer, he pays $16.79, whatever, roughly $1,700 in interest. So you're comparing $16.80, $16.79 to $14.50. And the difference between those two numbers is not nearly close to $400. Right? They're going to make him pay for this interest rate drop. So what he would be doing if he accepted this offer, he would be paying $400 to save $250-ish. And that doesn't make any sense. So let me just spell out everything here. So the interest for the loan without refinancing, we recorded as 1679.60. Interest, if he does refinance, was this 1450-ish number I got, so 1,441. So the difference between those two numbers is only $240. So again, you wouldn't pay $400 to save $240. Okay, so all of that to say, a question like this refinancing question is fair game for an exam. You will see questions like this on your homework. If I were to make you solve them using formulas, like say a loan formula from your book or something, these questions take 20 or 30 minutes, okay? If you're allowed to use an online loan calculator like what I was doing, as long as you've done it a time or two, so as long as you've gotten used to the calculator, these questions only take 5 minutes, or they are supposed to only take 5 minutes, right? You just type the numbers in and then type the second loan in or whatever, right? Compare the numbers and you are done. So in your own life, if you are analyzing consequences of loans that you're going to take out, refinancing options, things like this, in your own life, you should be using a loan calculator online rather than trying to do things by hand. That is why here we are using a loan calculator online. So in my own experience, I have been offered numerous refi options on my home mortgage. And every time I've been offered those, I scurry off to this bank rate calculator and I analyze the consequences. And usually the bank will offer you an array of options. So let's say things like, hey, we'll lower your interest rate to 2.5% for this fee. We'll lower your rate to 2% for some slightly bigger fee. You can analyze the consequences of all that as they offer them to you. Okay, so at the end of all this, let me go back to the goals of the section. Given a loan, you should be able to calculate a new payment after an interest rate change. We did that twice, right? Basically, you find the corresponding remaining balance in the table. That remaining balance becomes a new loan amount with some new APR, etc. And you should be able to do things like that Terry question where we think about what happens to you if you refinance, right? How much interest do you save, or how much interest do you not save, depending, if you refinance. Okay, so that's it for this material.